Hello, our weekly speech and drama lesson here at the 8 Keys to Naturalised English Speech. If you haven't tuned in with us before, or if you're watching in replay, this is a lesson I do every week at Wednesday, 6 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time. It's a speech and drama lesson. So this is, in speech and drama, we focus on using poetry and prose and drama as a way of practicing speech and for the things themselves. And as part of that, we practice our voice technique and our speech technique. And this particular lesson is specifically aimed at English second language speakers. So if you're an English second language speaker and you'd like to practice your speech, this is a speech and drama lesson for you. So let's begin. Also, this is the third one of these I've done. So if you're watching sort of in replay, it might be good to go back to the first one because I explain some of the things a bit more. I'll go through them a bit faster today because I don't want to repeat them for people who are watching it for the third time. So if you have never done one before, maybe go back, unless you're with me live, in which case, welcome. So the start of the lesson always is we do our breathing technique. In quick summary, breathing is important because it forms the foundation of voice. If you don't use correct breathing technique, you can't get correct resonance and you can't project your voice well, which will make your speech sort of stilted and you won't be able to speak as naturally as you could. So I want you to place your hand on your diaphragm. So if you haven't seen this before, it's the muscle just there, just below the bottom ribs. Place your hand there. And we're going to breathe in and out. So just take some deep breaths. Remember again that you shouldn't be raising your shoulders when you breathe in. That's clavicular breathing, which is the wrong type of breathing. We want to do intercostal diaphragmatic breathing, which is where the diaphragm moves down, and the lower two ribs swing out to allow the maximum air in. So let's just breathe. Breathe in and out. In and out. One more time, in and out. Okay, this time we're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out on a hum sound. So now we're starting to activate our vocal cords. The hum should just be a comfortable pitch and not too high, not too low, and a comfortable volume. We're not trying to project our voice, we're just trying to warm up our voice. So we'll breathe in and hum. And in and hum. One more time in and hum. We've got someone watching us. Welcome. Feel free to join in with these exercises as we go. Now we're going to try this week. We didn't do this in the past weeks. We're going to try humming at different pitches. So that one I got you to just choose a comfortable pitch, which was comfortably low. We're going to try higher and lower. Now the reason when we're doing this, we're actually starting to warm up our voice and get resonance in different parts of our head, our mouth. Now we have resonating cavities in our head and in our mouth and our nose, and this is where the voice picks up resonation, which gives it volume, but also tone and richness. So the more of the resonation you can pick up, the richer voice you'll have. Some of the main resonating cavities are the mouth cavity. Obviously, there's a space there. The sound can reverberate. The nasal passage, it can get reverberation. Get some resonation from the bones in the head and the bones here. All these areas can pick up resonation. So we're just going to try humming at different pitches. So back with your hand here again, always your hand here. So when you breathe in, you should be able to feel that part of your body moving. Okay, so breathing in. And in. Now, when I do that, I can feel the resonation all across here, totally different place. Depending on what pitch you chose will be different where you can feel it. But try and notice in yourself where you can feel the vibrations. Breathing in. For me, that's starting to feel more in my head. Again, yours will be different. Breathing in again. And one more time. So yeah, I hope you could feel the resonance in different places. The more you become aware of this, the more you can control your voice. It's the same as anything. If you want to become an athlete, you have to train your muscles, and the more you can use the muscles, the better athlete you'll be. Same as any kind of sport, you want to train your body in coordination. It's exactly the same with your voice. You want to train your body, see how it feels. So we're going to do one more vocal warm-up before we get into our speech warm-up. Now, this time we're going to breathe in, and we're going to count from 1 to 20 at different random pitches. Okay, so I'm going to go like 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do any, they don't have to be the same as me. Just pick any pitches, and for this, we're going to start to project our voice a bit. So I'm going to imagine that I'm sending my voice to the back of the room. This isn't a very big room, so it's not that far away, but that's where I'm imagining that I'm sending my voice. So for you, do the same. If you're in a small room, imagine that you're sending your voice past the edge of the room. And we're going to just count from 1 to 20 in different pitches. Right, so breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now, I know all these exercises feel very strange, but they are, and believe me, it's stranger because you're all watching me. And when usually I do this in a class, and obviously then you feel very strange because everyone's watching, but you get used to it, and it's good at exercise. Same as a lot of physical exercises would look strange if you were just watching someone do them. But when you understand the purpose, it doesn't feel strange. Okay, we're going to go to our speech organs warm-up. So our speech organs are the tongue, the teeth, the lips, the parts of our mouth that form the sound. And we need to warm those up especially. Now, this is especially important for anyone learning a second language, because obviously the sounds in our second language are different from ours, and it can be hard to pronounce them well. So we need to practice warming up our speech organs so that we can speak clearly. And now I know, like I said, this is for English second language learners, but I'm learning a second language, which is Chinese. And a lot of the sounds in Chinese are very different for me. So I have to do the same sorts of exercises to warm up my mouth for Chinese. So now I'm going to post a tongue twister to the chat here. So let me just copy and paste it. And we're going to say it together. Now, I've posted different tongue twisters on different for these weekly lessons. There we go. So you can read it and read along. This is a pretty famous one. If you've ever done any sort of English speech work, you might have seen this one. So we'll start off reading it slowly. Obviously, with this tongue twister, the main thing is to practice the p sound and use the lips clearly. So let's try. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? So a peck is a measurement, if you didn't know. So Peter Piper, who is a person, is picking a measurement of pickled peppers. That's what it's all about. Okay, we'll say it again, and we'll say it a few times, and we'll try and get a bit faster each time. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Bit faster. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? That might have been too fast. I don't know. Feel free, if you're watching in, feel free to comment if you want it slower, if it's okay, just so I know. Okay, I'm just going to copy one more tongue twister for you. Sorry, give me a second. Now, this one is a combination of practicing consonants and practicing some vowel sounds. Bobby Bibbert bought a bat. Bobby Bibbert bought a ball. With the bat, Bob banged the ball against the wall. Okay, so we're practicing the b again, the tongue, not the tongue, the lips sounds, the same as Peter Piper, b, all made with the lips. But we're also practicing some long vowels, ball, wall. For any of you who are also subscribed to the 8 Keys to Naturalised English Speech, you'll know that the whole first key, in fact, the first 5 keys, are all about different long vowel sounds. Long vowel sounds are very important in English. If you are interested in that, you can follow the link to the website. But let's practice this tongue twister. Bobby Bibbert bought a bat. Bobby Bibbert bought a ball. With the bat, Bob banged the ball against the wall. Now, if you're struggling with this, the art is to try and really pronounce the sounds more than you normally would. So ball, wall, I'm exaggerating that quite a lot because it is hard, even for a native English speaker. It can be quite hard to say these sounds so quickly after each other. That's why it's a tongue twister. And the way to get around that is to pronounce it very clearly, which is also good practice for your speech, which is why we practice tongue twisters. So let's say this again a few times. Bobby Bibbert bought a bat. Bobby Bibbert bought a ball. With the bat, Bob banged the ball against the wall. A little bit faster. Bobby Bibbert bought a bat. Bobby Bibbert bought a ball. With the bat, Bob banged the ball against the wall. One last time, we'll try and go a bit faster even. Bobby Bibbert bought a bat. Bobby Bibbert bought a ball. With the bat, Bob banged the ball against the wall. Okay, that's enough tongue twisters for now. So we've warmed up our breath and we've warmed up our vocal cords with the humming. We've practiced resonation with the different pitches and the counting, and then we've practiced the articulation of the sounds. And these are the 4 parts of the formation of the voice. So let's move on. Now we're going to do a poem, as we did last week. So I'm just going to copy the link to the poem into the comments. Now, this is a poem by a very famous poet, Roger McGough. And again, if you haven't listened before, what we do is I will read the poem and you can listen, you can read along with me, you can replay it later and practice it. It is good to actually try saying a poem in the same way as someone who is trained in how to say it, because it teaches you how to say it. Now, this particular poem, I spoke last week about how when there's no punctuation at the end of the line, you continue on. Now, this poem is a little bit different in that there's no punctuation anywhere in the poem. So, what in this case, you have to use your judgment about where to stop because you don't say the entire poem with no pause because you would run out of breath. So you have to try and read it and see what makes sense, where to stop. In English poetry, there are many rules, I guess. Some types of poetry break those rules, and then you react accordingly. Now, this is a poem called "The Sound Collector" by Roger McGough. And it's about a person who is collecting sounds. So it's a great poem to practice for speech sounds because it's all about the sounds of cats and clocks and toasters. And you can use each line to really express that in your voice. Anyway, I'll read it. Let's get straight into it. Again, we always start with the title and the author, and then we read the poem. So, yeah, you can open it up from that link I just clicked. The Sound Collector by Roger McGough. A stranger called this morning, dressed all in black and grey, put every sound into a bag and carried them away. The whistling of the kettle, the turning of the lock, the purring of the kitten, the ticking of the clock, the popping of the toaster, the crunching of the flakes. When you spread the marmalade, the scraping noise it makes. The hissing of the frying pan, the ticking of the grill, the bubbling of the bathtub as it starts to fill. The drumming of the raindrops on the window pane. When you do the washing up, the gurgle of the drain. The crying of the baby, the squeaking of the chair, the swishing of the curtain, the creaking of the stair. A stranger called this morning. He didn't leave his name, left us only silence. Life will never be the same. Okay, so you can hear how when I read that, I tried to make my words sound like the different things that the poem was talking about. And that's kind of the art, I guess, of this kind of poetry. So we're going to go over it one more time. And then after that, we're going to go on with something else. So read along with me. If you didn't read along with me that first time, give it a go now. Okay, take a breath. The Sound Collector by Roger McGough. A stranger called this morning, dressed all in black and grey, put every sound into a bag and carried them away. The whistling of the kettle, the turning of the lock, the purring of the kitten, the ticking of the clock, the popping of the toaster, the crunching of the flakes. When you spread the marmalade, the scraping noise it makes. The hissing of the frying pan, the ticking of the grill, the bubbling of the bathtub as it starts to fill. The drumming of the raindrops on the window pane. When you do the washing up, the gurgle of the drain. The crying of the baby, the squeaking of the chair, the swishing of the curtain, the creaking of the stair. A stranger called this morning. He didn't leave his name, left us only silence. Life will never be the same. Okay, I hope you managed to follow along with that. Now we're up to the third part of our speech and drama lesson, which is prose today. Sometimes we do drama, sometimes we do prose. And last week we started reading through The Little Prince, which is a beautiful book. It's actually French, it's not English. but it's been translated into English. And it's actually one of the most famous books, probably one of the most famous books in all kind of European literature, I guess. And recently it was made into a movie. It's become much more popular universally. So we're just reading from that. Now, last week we started, wait, I'll put the link up. This is a link to a PDF that you can read online. Last week we started reading at the start of the first chapter. So if you're on the PDF that I just shared, I will tell you the page number. So we go past the contents page and the dedication, and then last week we started with chapter 1, which is page 4 of the book, and we read to the end of the first paragraph of page 4. And this was talking about the author and how he was a very imaginative child and was discouraged by the grown-ups because he had to be sensible, because that's what grown-ups think. So now we're going to start from the second paragraph on the page 5. And we'll actually just read down the rest of that page, because then it's up to chapter 2. So we'll do that next week. So if you've got that page, you can follow after me. Now, the way we announce this kind of reading in speech and drama is to say, an excerpt from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. My French pronunciation is probably terrible. I need to do this course for French. So let me go again. An excerpt from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. So then I chose another profession and learned to pilot airplanes. I have flown a little over all parts of the world, and it is true that geography has been very useful to me. At a glance, I can distinguish China from Arizona. If one gets lost in the night, such knowledge is valuable. In the course of this life, I have had a great many encounters with a great many people who have been concerned with matters of consequence. I have lived a great deal among grown-ups. I have seen them intimately, close at hand, and that hasn't much improved my opinion of them. Whenever I met one of them who seemed to me at all clear-sighted, I tried the experiment of showing him my drawing number 1, which I have always kept. I would try to find out, if this was a person of true understanding. But whoever it was, he or she would always say, "That is a hat." Then I would never talk to that person about boa constrictors or primeval forests or stars. I would bring myself down to his level. I would talk to him about bridge and golf and politics and neckties. And the grown-up would be greatly pleased to have met such a sensible man. Okay. So like I said, if that made no sense to you, it's probably a good idea to go back to the last lesson or even just read the start of that chapter yourself. We're just going to continue through this book in order as we go through the weeks, actually. So if you do stumble across this in the week and you'd like to sort of continue with the lessons, we started The Little Prince in lesson number 2. So you might go back or just read the book, like I said. So we're going to read that again. Now, if you can, the purpose of this is to show you how the language is spoken and read. Now, when I'm reading, hopefully you can hear that, again, I'm really trying to use my voice and my articulation to paint the words, to really bring out the color. And I'm trying to bring out the emotion and also at the same time, the full value of the sounds. So if there are long vowels, I'm really lengthening them. If there are consonants, I'm pronouncing them very clearly. It's very important if you are reading, well, it's very important to do that anytime you speak, but especially if you're reading from a book or poetry, it needs to be very clear because the people who are listening won't be familiar with that thing. And if you kind of mumble and talk like this, like if I was like, I'll show you if I was to read it like this, and I chose another profession, learned to pilot airplanes. I've flown a little over all parts of the world. If I speak like that, you won't be able to follow what I'm saying, you know? So you need to learn to speak clearly and project your voice. just to give you a bad example there. So let's read that section again. If you want to, you can read along with me and try and listen to the way I read. Okay. In fact, this time let's read the whole of page 5. We read the first bit last week, but let's read it all this week because it flows on. An excerpt from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. The grown-up's response, this time, was to advise me to lay aside my drawings of boa constrictors, whether from the inside or the outside, and devote myself instead to geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar. That is why, at the age of 6, I gave up what might have been a magnificent career as a painter. I had been disheartened by the failure of my drawing number 1 and my drawing number 2. Grown-ups never understand anything by themselves, and it is tiresome for children to be always and forever explaining things to them. So then I chose another profession and learned to pilot airplanes. I have flown a little over all parts of the world, and it is true that geography has been very useful to me. At a glance, I can distinguish China from Arizona. If one gets lost in the night, such knowledge is valuable. In the course of this life, I have had a great many encounters with a great many people who have been concerned with matters of consequence. I have lived a great deal among grown-ups. I have seen them intimately, close at hand, and that hasn't much improved my opinion of them. Whenever I met one of them who seemed to be at all clear-sighted, I tried the experiment of showing him my drawing number 1, which I have always kept. I would try to find out, so, if this was a person of true understanding. But whoever it was, he or she would always say, "That is a hat." Then I would never talk to that person about boa constrictors, or primeval forests, or stars. I would bring myself down to his level. I would talk to him about bridge and golf and politics and neckties. And the grown-ups would be greatly pleased to have met such a sensible man. Okay, that brings us to the end of our chapter 1. So next week we're going to start with chapter 2 of The Little Prince. It also brings us to the close of our lesson for today. So yes, I hope any of you who are watching these, either live or in replay, I hope this is useful. If you have any parts that you particularly like, write and tell me, because it's good for me to know. Like I said in the first lesson, normally, I've done this for 15 years, but normally I would do it in person with a group, or even maybe 1 or 2 people, but they would normally be here in person. So it's a new experience for me doing it online. So any feedback is always welcome. And if you are an ESL student who would really like to focus more on your pronunciation, I have an online course called The 8 Keys to Naturalised English Speech. And you can follow the link on our YouTube channel to the website. It's an online course which will help you specifically with your pronunciation. It's not a course to teach you vocabulary or grammar. It's just pronunciation so that you can speak in a more natural way. And the first month is free, so you can try it out and see what you think. Anyway, I hope to see you back here again next week for speech and drama. And yeah, thanks for coming. Have a lovely evening, or whatever time of day it is when you're watching this. Okay, bye-bye.